The following program is brought to you by Cloudcast Media, a podcast leader in developing shows to elevate local brands, local stories, and local storytellers. Cloudcast, bringing ears and minds home.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Ibarra and I'm the superintendent of the Escondido Union School District. And we're here today with Enlightened. This is a podcast produced by EUSD, and we are here to talk about the wonderful things that are going on in the Escondido Union School District. Our purpose is to focus on the wonderful people and programs and challenges that we have. So with me today, we have some very special guests. First, we have Mr. Michael Taylor, Assistant Superintendent of Escondido Union School District. Hi, Michael.
Hi, how are you, Dr. Ibarra?
Great. Also with us, we have a teacher from Mission Middle School, Mr. Josh Garcia. Mr. Garcia, how are you?
Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. And we also have a special student from Mission Middle School, Kaylee Rojas. Hi, Kaylee.
Hi.
Okay, so here we're going to be talking today about one of our challenges, and that is our facilities. Because as you know, school districts when they were built, our schools were built in 1930s, 40s, 50s, and even 60s. And in order to renovate and modernize the facilities, we need some funds. And one of the sources of funding is through local tax measures called bonds. And so here with us to talk about a bond measure that we had back in, what was it, Michael, 2014?
2014, yes.
Yep, so 2014, I had just come into the district. It was my first year, and one of the biggest challenges we had was our facilities. And we needed to improve them. We needed to modernize them. We had the conditions. So, Michael, take us back to November of 2014. What was it like?
Well, it was very exciting in that Proposition E passed the over the 55% threshold. So the voters of Escondido were very much on board with modernizing our facilities. The Proposition E was about $182.1 million worth of bond dollars to modernize our 23 schools within our school district.
Yep.
So that's what was happening back in November 2014, and we've been building ever since.
Yeah, okay, so this was a Prop 39 bond that we passed, right?
Correct.
So can you tell our voters what is the threshold to pass Proposition 39 bond?
So in order to pass a general obligation bond, you need 55% approval from the voting population in our specific school district boundary area. And so the initiative passed, Proposition E passed by 56.95%. So just a little bit over the 55% threshold.
Oh, wow. So tell us what we've been doing with the bond funds.
Well, I've been very involved with this since the very beginning. And this bond program, i.e. Proposition E, has always been about three things. It's been about our facilities, upgrading our facilities, because as you mentioned earlier, we've got facilities that were built a number of years ago, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. So we have a number of our facilities are quite old. We also have a huge need for upgrading our information technology infrastructure, as we are squarely in the information age. And we are delivering instruction via devices. It's important that we have the appropriate bandwidth. So the second part of our bond program, increasing and modernizing our information technology infrastructure. And the last part of Proposition E was making sure that our schools are safe. The world that we live in today is not the same that it was 30, 40 years ago. So we've provided additional fencing for our schools to make them safer. And then we've also installed a number of security cameras just to make sure that our schools are safer.
Okay, fantastic. Any projects that you're very most proud of, like this project, we're really proud of this work. I know there's a number of projects that we've accomplished over the years. Which one really stands out to you?
Well, I would say that there are four major projects that really stand out. The modernization of Central Elementary School, our oldest school, built in 1938, a brand new kindergarten area and classrooms, and then also a brand new preschool classrooms to go along with the playground. So that's Central Elementary School. Orange Glen, modernizing that campus. Mission Middle School, the two-story building that we put into Mission Middle School. And then last but not least, a number of the major fencing projects that have just made our schools a lot safer. And the fencing is also aesthetically pleasing to the eye. We wanted to be very certain that we didn't detract from the view of the school.
Sounds great, Michael. All right, so we talked about mission. So, Mr. Garcia, as a teacher on the campus, can you tell us a little bit about what the school was like before the district went in there and started renovating a lot of the buildings?
That's a great question. I had the privilege of being a part of Mission starting 4 years ago. So I was there right as they were breaking up and deconstructing some of the old buildings. But it's just like any very nice facility, it eventually erodes or it just becomes outdated. So you see some, cracked concrete, some walls that are, peeling or carpet is stained. It was once beautiful probably in the 50s and 60s, but
right.
Now it's just like anything, just like any civilization. It's kind of expired. It's kind of past its due date,
Mm-hmm. So what is it like now in some of the newer buildings?
So the buildings, the new buildings, like the two-story building that Mr. Michael Taylor referenced, and the other renovated buildings are very bright. The students would probably say that they feel more exciting to be a part of. I've asked a lot of my students about those new buildings and how they feel when they come into them as opposed to some of the older buildings. And there's a difference. There's a feel of excitement that this space they're proud of, as opposed to being kind of put in an older building where you feel less of that pride. So seeing the walkways and seeing the new walls and seeing the desks and the floor and everything looking new and neat, it's inspiring for the students.
That's awesome. What would you tell people that voted to approve the funds that made this renovation possible?
First of all, thank you. That's huge, and the impact is being felt right now on our campus. Secondly, we at Mission Middle School, we strive for excellence. So in everything we do as far as education, as far as how we even instruct or how the students learn, we believe in excellence, always doing better than the year before. So in terms of this renovation, the physical space, showing excellence in that space, not just in education, but in the place we educate, I think it matters to the kids, and I think that we will see a huge measure of growth in the students even when we change their environment they're learning in. So thank you, and please continue to excel as we continue to excel as well.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Garcia. All right, let's shift our questions over to Kaylee Rojas. Kaylee, how long have you been at Mission?
I've been there for 2 years.
2 years. And what grade are you in?
7th.
7th grade. Fantastic. So what do you want to be like? What do you want to be when you grow up?
Ever since I was little, I've really loved animals and really loved to help them. So what I want to do is continue doing that.
Fantastic. Now, you've been in Mission now for 2 years, and do you remember when the buildings opened up? Have you had an opportunity to go into the new buildings?
Yeah.
Okay. What was the reaction like from the students?
From this year, when I went in, it was very exciting. There was a lot to see from the older ones when I was in 6th grade. It felt learning more exciting.
Okay, fantastic. Now, what is it that? What are some of the things that your friends and you have talked about?
We usually say about the middle in the new building.
Mm-hmm.
There's an area where you can work, and it's very peaceful.
Okay, you're talking about the spaces that they designed so that you can have on outdoor benches and areas to read and things like that. So are people utilizing those spaces?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So, all right. Have you been in the two-story building?
Yes.
Do you remember going away for spring break and then coming back and there was no building and then suddenly a building appeared?
Yes.
Yes, okay, we've gotten quite, for our listeners, we got quite a buzz throughout the community. So that was a new design method. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, Mr. Taylor?
Yes, the two-story math and science building at Mission Middle School is essentially a modular construction. And so what you have is essentially 10 individual modular units stacked on top of each other. And we were able to do that within an 8-hour period. Now, mind you, those modular buildings were shipped down from Riverside County. And so we were able to put them on top of each other like Legos.
Yeah, I remember seeing the footage of that. It was one day, in one morning, there was no building, and then there was suddenly a building appeared, and it's quite something. And for our listeners, you can actually access that. You can go into our website and look at the video. So it's quite a thing to see, and you have a full day of footage, kind of sped up, and you can see the building like Legos just being built and erected in one day. So that's great. All right, so back to you, Kaylee. What would you say to our listeners about the impact that it's having? I mean, what would you want to say to them? Because it takes people to say, it took our community coming together and saying, we want to do this for Mission Middle School. So what would you say to them?
Can you say more specifically?
Yeah. What would you like to thank the people who voted on Proposition E back in 2014? What would you like to say to them?
I would like to thank them because it really changed how us students are at school. The way we learn and the way we feel makes us stay more positive, and we're just in a good mood than we are being somewhere where we are.
That's fantastic. All right, final thought. Mr. Taylor, just to share information with our listeners, the district, we have placed Measure Q on the ballot for the upcoming election. We've been getting a lot of questions from people. It's like, what is Measure Q going to do for the community, for the school?
Well, thank you for asking that question. I'm so pleased to hear the comments from the student perspective and also from the teacher perspective. Even though I'm not in the classroom delivering instruction, one of the things that we're very adamant about is creating great spaces in which learning can happen. So back to your question about Measure Q. Because of the success of Proposition E, what we'd like to do is continue with that momentum. The $182 million, when you think of major construction, is not a lot of money, especially with a district of our size. We have 23 schools, and a lot of work needs to be done. So we'd like to continue with that momentum, that building momentum, to make our schools better, to continue to create those great spaces in which learning can happen. So Measure Q is $205 million, and we're going to continue with the Big Four, if you will. And the Big Four are Central Elementary, Mission Middle School, Del Dios Academy of Arts and Sciences, and Orange Glen. We modernize those partially with Proposition E. With Measure Q, we can finish those entire schools completely, modernize them completely. The second part of Measure Q is, with our declining enrollment, we've also looked at configuration changes and combining some schools. And one of those combinations includes a K-8 conversion of Bear Valley Middle School and also L.R. Green Elementary School. And the last segment of Measure Q is to ensure that every site receives something from Measure Q. So we've put about $25 million aside to ensure that we can do smaller projects at the schools that aren't receiving major modernizations. For example, sage structure, improving the drop-off and pickup areas, replacing HVAC or air conditioning units.
A lot of systems, yeah.
So really excited about the momentum that we have now, but we'd like to continue that momentum with Measure Q, and we're asking the voters of Escondido to...
Yeah, that's why the district put that on the measure. So, okay, that's great. So, Mr. Garcia and Kaylee, any final comments or thoughts?
It's easy to underestimate the impact that this has on student morale. Kaylee was just talking about this, the way that the campus makes her feel as a student learning in a learning environment. Kaylee, would you mind explaining some of that?
Yeah. So when I walked in, seeing how everything was remodeled, it felt very, magical. It's like a fairy tale where you just feel more expressive about yourself, and it gets people really in a good mood, and it makes you want to learn, and it's like a very good experience.
That's awesome. So that's all the time that we have. I just want to thank my special guest, Mr. Garcia. Thank you so much for being here. Mr. Taylor and Kaylee Rojas, thank you for giving us that student perspective.